Now, if you're a college football fan at all, you obviously have a team. And we know that recruiting, whether that be through the transfer portal, whether that be through the high school ranks, JUCO ranks, prep school ranks, it's the lifeblood of the program. It's a good barometer to see where your team's going to end up or to see if they can stay on top where they're at. But it's got to be an amazing situation to be an Alabama fan or a Georgia fan on National Signing Day. Yesterday, Georgia was the unanimous #1 team-ranked recruiting class. If you look at rivals, 247 on 3, just across the board. And about 75-80% of the rest was Alabama at #2. It's almost like being a rich kid on Christmas. You know you're going to get the presents you're supposed to get, but you're going to get some badass surprises too. And it's never bad. You don't have to worry about the Grinch. You don't have to worry about getting coal in your stocking. You don't have to worry about your players flipping to somebody else. Hell, it's a trampoline amusement park if you're a Bama and a Georgia fan, because you're going to flip the top dogs and keep yours. And it's a testament to Kirby Smart and Nick Saban and what they've built. But I wonder at any point, does it become not fun to be an Alabama fan or a Georgia fan during signing day? If it's all good and there's no other end of the spectrum, is that really enjoyable? Yes! It must be amazing. It must be the greatest feeling of all time to be able to wake up in the mansion, run downstairs in your onesie made out of gold, and see the absolute domination of presents underneath the tree, and you haven't even been outside yet. It's basically a car commercial around Christmas every signing day if you're an Alabama fan or a Georgia fan. But you did have some teams move up into the top 10, a couple that were unexpected. You look at Auburn. You look at what Miami did at the end yesterday, finishing with a top 5 class pretty much unanimously. We know Texas and LSU and some of the other big dogs are going to get theirs. But if you're a Florida fan, kind of feel a little bit more like Oliver Twist this morning than you do like the Bama and Georgia fans, which is a part of National Signing Day that is beautiful. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And if Billy doesn't figure it out soon, he's going to be out of a job after 2024. Now, you guys know we love to bet on all type of sports, and it's a lot better when you're in on the action. And if you're going to be in on the action, DraftKings Sportsbook is the only way to go. And if you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now with our code CRANE, that's CRAIN, not spelled like the bird, new customers can bet $5 on NFL games to score $150 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings with code CRANE, that's CRAIN. And remember, with DraftKings, the crown is yours. A guy who always does a great job in 2023 and 2024 and is rocking just an absolute delicious hoodie right now.
Look at that.
Rocking the Booster Club hoodie, which you can get. We're going to drop that link in the chat. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, my brother, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver Blaine Crane. And guys, just your overall thoughts from National Signing Day. And David, look, you live with an Alabama fan. The air must be a little bit sweeter when they wake up on National Signing Day.
Yeah.
You're the best looking girl at the dance almost every year.
I called her yesterday. She said, "Happy Nick Saban Day."
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Happy Nick Saban Day. You know, I rewatched one of my favorite movies this past weekend, The Usual Suspects.
Great.
And I feel like I watched it again yesterday.
Yeah.
Because Georgia and Alabama, they're Kaiser Sose. Yeah. You're Kaiser Sose. And they just, at will, finish 1 and 2. It truly is incredible. You look at what the Buckeyes did, 4 5-star recruits, the most in the country. Texas had a big day in the top 5. But I want to call out 2 programs here specifically. One, like you said, Miami finished with a top 4 class. They finished at number 4, 2 5-star commits. They had 11 4-stars, 27 overall commits. We talked about, and Florida State was in that 3 spot for much of the day yesterday, and they fell to 11. Still a great class. You've been talking.
No 5-stars though, right? They ended up with no 5 stars.
AJ Bolden decommitted, went to at the last minute, went to Georgia. But you've been talking about how Florida State getting kept out of the 14 playoff is going to hurt not only Florida State in recruiting, but also the ACC writ large. You look at what Mario Cristobal was able to do following, what was it this year, an 8-4 season, and you know the blunder against Georgia Tech with not taking the knee, still finishes with a top 4 class. This is the type of Miami that I grew up watching. If you put a gate around Dade County, you can almost have an elite football team just with that. Mario Cristobal played in the trenches. He understands the importance of that. So kudos to Miami. And then Oregon for me as well. No 5-star commits, but they were teetering in the top 5 there. They finished at 6, 25 overall commits. You know, you're going into the Big Ten now, which they finished second in the Big Ten recruiting yesterday. You look at what they also added in the transfer portal. We've talked a lot about Dylan Gabriel coming in from Oklahoma. Back-to-back years, you've landed one of the top quarterbacks out of the transfer portal. But they also got Dante Moore, who was committed to Oregon before he ever went to UCLA. So Dan Lanning, he's built this thing like an SEC program, served as the defensive coordinator under Kirby Smart. So big day for Oregon, big day for Miami, and a lot of other teams around the country too.
With that, and Blaine, I want to make sure people understand, this is just the rankings of the high school recruits. I did not go off the combo of the transfer portal and high school recruits.
That's not
I believe
that's
not even finished yet. We know the window's still going. That composite ranking at the end, I think, should be the most.
That's much more important because you look at a team like a Michigan. Michigan was finished top in the transfer portal last year, but more and Michigan right now 17 yesterday. So these days, if the transfer portal is going to be what it is, you have to take a composite.
Yeah, and if you have teams that are going to lean on it heavy, I mean, look, Colorado finished with the 99th ranked recruiting class because they're going so heavy in the transfer.
Colorado,
portal. I think they ended up with 6 commits.
Yeah, on 3, they're 43 right now. 1 5-star, 3 4-stars, and 4 3-stars with 8 total commits. Well, you look at that and you're like, well, what's going on? Well, of course, they're building most of this out of the transfer.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Ole Miss is doing a lot out of the transfer portal as well. You look at, so that's why I'm so excited to see these theories, these ground balls kind of get run out on some of these experiments with the transfer portal and see how it goes. Blaine.
What? What do you want?
The boy Hugh.
Auburn yesterday.
The boy Hugh had a day.
Look. Talk your ish. They did. I will say this. Auburn did, I believe, end up with one more top 100 commit than Alabama did.
So talk your ish in that nice shirt.
So, I mean, look, Bama, whatever, not too excited about it. It's just another run-of-the-mill year for these guys. But what this man is doing right here, it's not a Frost. It's a freeze. But you see what you can do at Auburn.
Yeah.
Right? Auburn somewhat recruits itself. It's always been like that. That's when the huddle up and we suck guy came in and did nothing. It surprised everybody. But we say this all the time. Hugh hunts for his food, right? Hugh, he's not a house cat. He doesn't want you to bring milk to him, all right? He's the one who jumps out of the backyard and you have to go find it at 2 a.m. somewhere because he is hunting for his food. Not 1 5-star receiver, right? 2 5-star receivers.
Have to have it.
Have to have it. And now you have to keep them. In my opinion, one thing I am frustrated with, okay, unless Heisenberg's going to come in here and ball out next year, which I don't think he's going to.
Talking about Walker White?
Yeah.
Heisenberg.
All right? You're putting a lot of trust in Peyton Thorne, all right, which I am worried about. And I know you have holes to fix, and you are fixing that hole. But there is one guy who still has to steer the ship, and that is your quarterback.
Yeah, I will say this, though, and look, Hugh Freeze said it best, that the 24 and 25 class is going to tell the story of his tenure at Auburn. Because you've got to get over that hump. A hell of a class. You got to give a shout out to the staff, everybody involved, Trevon Reed, Zach Etheridge, Aldridge, all those guys that did a heck of a job bringing this class together. But you bring up a great point. Some of these guys, if your team missed out on a couple guys yesterday that you really wanted, don't worry. With the rules now, hell, they could be in the transfer portal coming right back to you next year.
For sure.
Tomorrow. So, and from a coaching perspective, it's why you never burn a bridge. You brought up Dante Moore.
Yeah.
Right? Committed to Oregon, ended up signing with UCLA, hops in the transfer portal, goes back to Oregon. That's why you never burn a bridge, especially during the transfer portal era, because all of a sudden, and I'm not saying it's a great thing, first sign of adversity or a promise doesn't get kept, or maybe the NIL check comes up a little bit short, it's a bounce house, right? Yeah. I'm not talking about UCF. They're out of there.
Which still needs to be.
Team did well recruiting in National Sign Days, UCF. Yeah, you brought that up. UCF did phenomenal.
Well, it's amazing when you go to a Power 5 conference. I'm interested to see how the SMUs do, and going forward, going into a Power 5 conference, it gives you instant legitimacy. But who would have thought, David? Back to your point, we want to know what you thought about signing day. We're going to take your live calls 1-855-236-3228 at 7:15 a.m. Central. Remember, if you donate in the chat, we read that too. But who would have thought, going into that last playoff reveal, that on National Signing Day, Miami, who finished 8-4. Who lost to Florida State, ended up having more momentum and a better day than Florida State, who went undefeated, right, and beat Miami would have. But optically, not getting in the playoff, I'm telling you, it hurt Florida State.
Yeah, a little bit surprising still. Like I said, you finished with an 11 class, right on the cusp
it's
of
a high
having
class
top 10 class. And plus, like I've said, man, being able to recruit Miami well, that's not surprising, especially for a guy who played there, right? Like Mario Cristobal understands the importance of putting a gate around Dade County. I did want to give a shout out quickly to Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and LSU. They round out the top 10 there at 8, 9, and 10. Brent Venables to have a top 8 class.
Needed those O-linemen too.
Yeah, for sure. That was huge. And then Notre Dame and LSU back-to-back. I just think it's so funny. I mean, just like those two programs are going to be paired together and compared for a long time coming, since Brian Kelly is the winningest coach at Notre Dame and left to take the LSU job. And there they both sit, 9 and 10 in the recruiting rankings.
I just feel like the bowl selection.
Should have done it.
It dropped the ball.
Dropped the ball, not letting LSU know.
Play them.
Hey, Texas Tech, best class is 2000.
Yeah, Joey McGuire.
Joey McGuire, another a back-to-back under 30 recruiting class this year, which is good, which is solid. So Texas Tech, look, the Big 12 needs somebody.
Yeah.
Right. They need something to fill the void.
On the Florida front, obviously, kind of a loser in this situation in that Billy had built so much recruiting momentum.
You had
before
what,
the
top
season.
3 recruiting?
Yeah, and then they go 5 and 7. They finish at 16. Yeah. Look, you're still a couple spots ahead of Ole Miss, who had a great day yesterday. But we talked a lot about how Lane Kiffin's building this thing out of the transfer portal. You know, despite the frustration for Florida losing some big recruits, do you still feel good about what they were able to do and some of the players they're bringing in?
Well, you were able to hold on to LJ McCray, which was big. You were able to hold on to DJ Lagway, your quarterback, Lincoln Riley, and then made a run at him in the end. You know, you lost Amaris, who flipped to Auburn. You did get Jaden Baugh, the running back out of Georgia. You beat Bama on him, which was big. But let's be honest, when you have the number 3 class or a top 5 class going in and you finish at 16 in a place like Florida, you did not have a good day. Like, you can try and spin it and say Florida and Billy is building this thing. And I always talk about he got left in a worse spot than what a lot of people think, in my opinion, with what Dan Mullen left from a cultural and depth standpoint. But Florida is a humongous brand. Florida should not have trouble recruiting. Florida, I'm not saying they should finish with a top 3 class every year, but they should definitely be top 10. But if you look at the circumstances, look, circumstances dictate outcomes. Billy Napier is going into year 3. This is a must-win year for him, right? You lost a lot of guys in the transfer portal, right? There is some hope with some guys coming back, but you look at that schedule, you're going to have to do a hell of a coaching job to go 7 and 5.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So will Scott Strickland and this administration let him go 7 and 5 in year 3 and get through this brutal schedule? Or did they say, listen, we got a tough schedule in 2024 anyway. We may take some hits on some recruits this year. We can't fire the guy and let a new guy go into year 1 in 2024 with this transfer portal madness with no depth. And then all of a sudden you win 3 games and he's off on the wrong foot. And I guarantee you the negative recruiting that went on against Florida for a while was they are going to fire Billy Napier after 2024. You can commit to Billy Napier now, but he is not going to be there after your first year. He may not make it through your first year. And I think some people believe that because, let's be honest, I think most of us believe it because it's true. So I do want to commend the guys that stuck with their commitment, right? But in the era of the transfer portal and the freedom we have, you're really kind of playing with house money. And listen, I'm of the belief of you should get a free transfer if your head coach gets fired.
Sure.
Outside of if you've already transferred once or not. I do believe in that. So I can understand why, and you can kind of see the puzzle piece getting put together, but in no way, shape, or form, regardless of what's going on, is dropping from top 5 to 16 acceptable in Gainesville, and it shouldn't be.
Well
Yeah,
said.
I think Billy Napier is probably a phenomenal guy, and he's a good coach. But I go back to when he got hired, I didn't think this was going to work out. And I caught a lot of flack for this just because of what he was walking into. And you bring up what Dan Mullen left him was absolutely in shambles, right? It was in shambles. And now with the transfer portal, it shortens the coach's time to get a program ready down a year, I believe. You go from 3 to 2, right? And this happens to you in a recruiting class, and you have this schedule next year. There is no way. No, you go to what Billy did this year. I mean, Graham Mertz.
He got that right.
Got that right. That kid played on another level the entire year. You had pieces at receiver, but Billy Napier's not going to make it through the year next year. And I think we know that. I think Florida fans know that. And I don't think it's because Billy's a bad coach. I think Billy walked into a losing situation that takes more time than this to fix.
Yeah.
And I don't think people have the patience, especially nowadays, fans, administrations, to wait this long for you to fix it.
And it doesn't help that even though they got left out, Florida State did just go undefeated, right? They've beat you back-to-back years. Miami just finished with a top 4 recruiting class, including holding on to some big pieces, flipping some big pieces. I believe they flipped somebody from Florida as well. I'm not 100% sure. But right now, when you're looking at the race in the state of Florida going into 2024, I would probably say you've got, and I know Jordan Travis is moving on, but you got Florida State 1. I would say Miami 2, UCF 3, and Florida 4.
Which is wild because Miami and Florida State were down at the same time for so long after they dominated college football. And after Urban Meyer, it was Florida's time. Right?
And now Miami's got to do it on the field now, too, eventually.
They do.
With Mario.
The wins have to start coming.
But you're in the ACC.
Yeah.
You just think this recruiting class. Mario's got another year of, you've got a young offensive line that's talented. I think you're going to be fine at quarterback. If you're a Florida fan right now, I understand why. I understand it's a tough situation. I think Blaine put it really well. It was a tough inherited situation, and it's a tough situation as a fan.
It also doesn't help that your quarterback from year 1 went number 4 in the draft. Now, we all know that Anthony Richardson was drafted that high based off potential rather than what he did on the field. We can have that nuanced discussion. I'm talking about optically from the outside world. It doesn't help when a lot of people point to that and say, man, the quarterback you had in year 1, you still had a losing season, went top 5 in the NFL draft.
Yeah. Hey, everybody out there on YouTube, thanks for checking us out. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button, because what are you waiting on? Deep down in places you don't want to talk about, we know you want to subscribe. And head over and watch Lady Ballers on Daily Wire Plus and grab some of our merch from thedailywire.com/shop.